Wallsend, and I can remember the sound of the sirens of the shipyards in the mornings. And the school that I went to, St Peter's, that's now demolished, St Peter's at Wallsend. And then after that I went to Burnside, where really art back then was only kind of taught as something you did on a rainy day. So I left school at 16 and then worked for a few years on building sites. And then I started doing night classes, doing art at North Tyneside College, which was walking distance of where I lived. Once I started there, I had a great teacher called Maurice McPartlin, and I suddenly realised how lucky I was to be there. It was a very friendly place. The college was friendly, and the people who I was at school with, you know, was a really good community spirit at Wallsend at the time. And things like the super tankers that were built in the 60s. The first one was built in '69, SO Northumbria, and we at that point lived 10 minutes walk from where it was being built. So kind of used to walk up there and watch the work in progress, if you like, when I was 9 years old. The super tankers were so big that they would cast a big shadow over the houses that were immediately in the vicinity. Really, I've gone full circle, because I started off doing art at this night class, and then the lecturer there said, well, you know, why don't you do this full time? And nobody had really encouraged me to do kind of art before, so, you know, again, I felt very lucky to be given this chance, because having worked at a job that I wasn't very good at, you know, it was like an escape, really. So from then on, I never took it for granted. I never took the fact that I was allowed to draw and paint and then eventually make a living doing it. I never took that for granted. You know, I had always painted, even when I was employed, even when I was a graphic designer. I would always draw and paint in my spare time because it was a compulsion, which I guess a lot of artists say that. And sometimes it was kind of just drawing for the love of drawing, you know, for the sake of it, if you like. I did graphic design for over 20 years. While I was doing that, I was painting, and at one point I thought, well, maybe I should try and sell something. So I did sell a couple of paintings, which I was surprised at. But then after that, there was more demand for it. So it was, you know, it was a chance to rediscover what I'd started off doing, really. The graphic design work, I did everything from designing logos to doing a corporate identity. I started painting full-time in 2008, although I had always painted, but I painted seriously from that point. And then from 2008 onwards, it was just pure painting, really. When I first started painting seriously, I managed to get my work into a few local galleries, and then I actually approached a few other galleries further afield, and they started selling the work as well. They were predominantly figurative, but then as time went on, I found myself looking more to my past, and as time went on, I found that I was becoming more true to myself, and that I was painting things that had a personal relevance, going back to my childhood, and then kind of through those years. And so even if I'm painting something now, it kind of has to have some link to the past. Even if it's a modern scene, you know, the people in there may be doing something traditional that people may have done there for years. The first paintings were based on English eccentricity, and then with the passing of time, they gradually evolved into more things that went back to my childhood, back to my memories of watching ships being built down the road, and rather than painting it accurately, just how it felt. Quite often it was, you know, there wasn't loads of colour, you know, so that it reflected in my colour palette, really. I mean, the colour palette that I use a lot of the time is quite muted, a lot of earthy colours, and they're quite subtle, and it's, you know, it's kind of harking back to a memory of that kind of more monotone way that things seem to look, you know, around, you know, the 60s and 70s, really. A sense of humour. There's always humour in there, and I think it's a northern humour as well. influences, there are so many really. There's a lot of artists I like everybody from Picasso through to Norman Cornish, Braque, whose work I saw in Harrogate and thought that was absolutely amazing. I love the work of Theodore Major and John Thompson and William Turner, whose work, again, I've only this past couple of years become aware of through Clark Art. When I was young, I wasn't so interested in Lowry because, again, it was kind of close to the time of, when I was growing up near the shipyards, and again, you kind of took it for granted, and when you're young, some of your life is about kind of escaping from that. So Lowry, until more recently, I didn't take too seriously. I think he was an unsung hero for a long time. Anybody that was to compare my work with his, I take that as a massive compliment. Well, these days I always paint onto board, and I start off with a blank board and then prime it, give it 2 coats of gesso primer, and then after that I put a medium tone on, and then I used to draw into the painting, but now I tend to paint directly onto the board. These 2 small paintings I'm working on now, this one is of a pub near where I live that closed down a year ago, and it was a great pub, and the people there were great, and there's still a great community spirit here. So this painting is kind of in very early stages, but it's captured the kind of the light that was in the pub and the atmosphere, how it felt to me anyway, after a few beers. This one is a distant memory of childhood, where a slag heap near where I lived at Wallsend, and I can remember we used to get pieces of cardboard and slide down the slag heap on cardboard, so it was all kind of coal dust and would get absolutely manky, but I've just got fond memories of that. This painting is nearly finished. It's called Lights in the Shadow of a Giant, and again I put sometimes hundreds of figures in. Again, this painting, it's not an accurate depiction of the place, but I did use photographic reference and then added my own colour and people into it, of just again how it felt rather than actually maybe how it felt to me. The thing I find difficult with paintings like this is because there are so many people in, I never know when to stop, and sometimes I'm not even sure what they're doing in the paintings. It just takes on a life of its own. The shipyards had to pay the electricity bills of the houses that were in the shadow of the super tankers. So that one's about 1969. Although I'm known as a northern artist, my work more recently has become more diverse. I've painted subjects like Scarborough, Whitby, York, and more recently London. People seem to, if they buy one painting, they seem to be commissioning another one. I live near Wakefield now, and this painting is a local scene near the Hepworth Wakefield, where the boats are a bit smaller than the ones that I put in some of my paintings. But again, the image kind of harks back to the past and has a feel of nostalgia about it. What I'm finding now is people will sometimes buy one painting from Clark Art and then they'll commission another painting of a specific place, and I'll paint that with a northern perspective. Through Clark Art, the work pretty much sells immediately, and they've sold every painting I've done. So I'm very grateful for the support that they've given me the past 2 years.
Clark Art. Art for your future.